Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 211. And I can see you really good out of this eye. I can't see you so good out of this eye, but we're here. And we're going to talk about, okay, so what if? Now, let me disclaim this thing. Disclaimers all over the place because people get all riled up about, if you see a picture of Trump, you see a picture of Biden, half the country hates you. Whichever one is, and half the people think that you're awesome and you're part of their echo chamber. Now, that's not the whole point of this thing. The whole point of this one, and it was really funny to see some of the comments, is hilarious. Oh my gosh. It's like, just show up, come to the webinar, and you'll see. We're going to talk about what are the potential tax implications. Like, we don't have a crystal ball, but we have pretty good track record of what's happened in this administration, what happened in prior administration, and who knows if there's a wild card gets thrown into this. We don't know. So that's what we're going to do the best. We're going to try to keep it like politically neutral as possible. Yes, emotions get high on both sides, and everybody thinks that, one side's the savior of the world and the other side is Lucifer himself. It's probably not either of those cases. But yeah, there are ramifications on tax, and that's what we're going to talk about because we care about businesses and their owners, because guess what? Whatever shenanigans gets done in Washington, D.C., there's not a lot that we can do about that other than vote wisely and vote our conscience. But we're trying to help you navigate because we're trying to navigate it ourselves. That's why we started this thing in the week of March 17th or whatever, 2020. So that's the first caveat. Second caveat, this is a public service announcement on, I think is it July the 23rd and 24th? I got to look, or it's the 24th and 25th. This is bad. We have a boot camp, and it's not us, it's Sandler. Jim Dunn, same guy that I went through the Sandler boot camp with, thanks to Adam and the rest of the partners. I wasn't a partner at the time. They ponied up the money for me to go, and it was about, I think, $3,800 or $4,000 for me to go do it. And I was extremely skeptical. I had listened to all of the Sandler sales training CDs, and I was not a big fan. I honestly, really, 23rd and 24th. Thank you, Jamie. I wasn't a big fan, but I went through the thing because Adam and now my partners, but the partners at the time, they ponied up the money, and it completely changed my mind. I learned it's about listening. It's about asking the right questions, and it's about getting to know fast, and it's also about shortening the sales cycle. And you'll meet some really amazing people. And the fact that they dropped the price from $4,000 to $1,000 is really amazing. Like, what happened? Why didn't we do that? Why didn't they do that when I went through? Adam, come on, man. You're about saving money too. But anyway, that's water under the bridge. If you can, it's worth doing it. And I think they're limiting it to 30 slots. So anyway, Jim Maraccio, thank you. You are a big fan too. And it's not sales trickery. It's not, judo and like slimy sales stuff. It's like not that at all. And so that's all I'm going to say about it. It could really help you. And from Adam's perspective, he always looks at everything really from ROI standpoint first. And so he actually talked about it, but I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but then whoa, whoa. I saw Starbucks here. What's going on?
So Jim just shamelessly saying, get to the trivia question so I can win the Starbucks gift card, please. I need my macchiato. Yeah, fair enough.
I've been
Jim,
good
it's
about
all
sending
you,
them
baby.
out. So yeah.
That's
no,
good.
yeah, no, I think I was pretty darn good, I thought, at the whole sales stuff. But it changed my game in terms of just making me significantly more efficient. And, time is my most precious resource. So the fact that the training gave me time back, that was worth by far the price of admission. So, yeah, you should go. 'Cause I mean you talked about business value quite a few times in these webinars, and kind of once you get your profit in line, the only place to go to increase business value is sales. So why not learn how to do that efficiently and scalably?
And I'll throw in a few words about that since I went to your last one recently, and or to the last one, and it's one of those things where many of us have been doing business development marketing for a long time now, and you hear things and then you don't hear kind of the same thing, or you hear it differently. So it's a refreshing way of hearing things that you've heard before, but maybe even with a different voice. And the reason why I bring that up is, so I'm back down in Charleston, and got in the car, and I realized that I had not finished one of the books that you guys had recommended that I listened to like on 1.5. So a 10-hour book takes less time, but The Road Less Stupid. And I love it because there's a lot of chapters, but they're short time of the chapters. And then he starts out and he gives you, let me put it on a bumper sticker. And then you're just like, okay, so hearing those things, but that's similar to the Sandler thing, you hear things and you're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, or I hadn't thought about that in a while. So again, I don't get any, a royalty out of it or anything. It's just, something good to try and see if it's something for you, because we're all trying to figure out ways of getting through the redundancy and, hearing it differently and implementing. And a lot of us get, I think, paralyzed. And, it's like, okay, hear it again, you can get through it, and, do it incrementally. So, but I was thinking about that exact thing as I was driving here the past 3 hours. So
is right behind you, is that the marina?
it is.
I figured. Looks like a nice backlit soft background, but I figured there are boats behind you.
There are, and I can turn it off, but what happens is I go, maybe
then
I
you
won't go so dark.
Yeah, not
Yeah, you
bad.
can't really see it anyway. All right, I'll leave it like that. So anyway, and then two things. One is I have some we had discussed offline, the three of us, for everyone else's benefit, getting a little Cliff Clavenish with stats and stuff. So I have some of those things outside of the tax stuff that we're going to talk about. And then also to reiterate the fact that this is a non-political, I would say bipartisan, but really we're not partisan at all, necessarily. But to bolster my prior statement that all you have to do is turn on 114 or 116 on XM radio, and you'll hear the same story, but you don't realize it doesn't sound like it. I found the two kind of positions, the Trump and the Biden, as to why each other's side is so horrible. So I'll provide some quotes for that. But let me know if you want me to go into the miscellaneous other Cliff Clavin stuff before we jump into the tax stuff.
Yeah, hit it.
Go for
Okay.
it, man.
All right. So
I got plenty of tirade, for the
yeah, I'm
next
sure.
45 minutes. So
Okay. So first thing is, this was from the Daily Digest from Business North Carolina, that North Carolina bans recreational flounder fishing for 24 seasons. So for those of you who go out fishing and catch flounder, apparently you're not allowed to do that anymore. So please throw those back. I am not a fisher person, but do all flounder have the eyes on one side of the body, or is that just a specific flounder?
they do, and it happens over time.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know that. So it's possible to catch a young flounder that you wouldn't
I've
necessarily know.
never heard of that, but that could happen.
Interesting. Okay. The second thing is, let's see, where did it go? Oh, I lost it. Darn it. All right. It has to do with, oh, wait a minute. Now I know where it is. The title is Company Benefits Are Going to the Dogs. So a couple stats out of that, and this was in the Charlotte Ledger, that Mecklenburg County, the county, began offering 6,000 some employees discounted pet insurance through Nationwide, and there's about 300 workers using the benefit. In 2022, 36% of U.S. companies with more than 500 workers provided pet insurance as options to staff. North Carolina is 12th in the nation in collected pet insurance premiums, And Charlotte-based Catapult, which used to be the Employers Association, says that 8.9% of companies that responded to its cost survey said they offer pet insurance. So, and then they give it some statistics as to lymphoma treatment and other things that are being. So we've talked about a lot about what incentivizes or what retains employees. Apparently, you might want to consider adding this to your list of things to offer. In a little bit of seriousness, we've thought about things like this at our office, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the landlords in our office building will not allow pets unless you sneak them in. So we can't officially have a program kind of thing. So we as employers are off the hook on that. But so anyway, something to think about. So those two Cliff Clavin things for your benefit today.
You did not disappoint. You never do, Jack. Oh, hey, before we launch into the tax thing, so and in full disclosure, every week we go, all right, so what's current, what seems to be like the buzz out there, because we want to be relevant. And I saw this article on Yahoo Finance as well as MSN. So going to give them kudos, and who knows, and I saw it on Bankrate. So it was in a number of places. I don't know who originated this, but it was these 7 things. And it basically said 7 tax implications if Trump wins in 2024, something like that. So I'm like, hey guys, what do you guys think? We haven't done that side of the table. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So, I want to give credit where credit's due. But again, what we want to do is like go into based on what we think is going to happen, not based on rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, and not based on, echo chambers from one side or the other. Let's just talk about, we've talked about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And if that goes away, what does that really mean? So in some cases, what we're going to be talking about is what happens if it gets reinstated. So let's kind of go down that path, Adam, and then I'll monitor the questions as well as the chat, and hit us with whatever is on your mind as well. And it doesn't have to be pertaining to this either. We'll answer your tax, legal, and business growth questions as well. So, Adam, floor's yours.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Gary. And I since I jokingly say, yeah, I got, glad you got that tax advice from Timmy, on TikTok sitting in his mommy's basement. I've had the best of intentions of not sitting in my basement, being Timmy, and failed miserably. So, we're gonna talk tax policy from Adam's basement in his workout shirt. So has not showered today. Probably TMI. But anyway, this most of what I'm going to go through is what's likely to happen under Trump, and then also to dispel any sort of like crap that's out there related to where our taxes go, and who's done a better job, one way or the other, because what does happen after the election will matter in terms of where our money goes and how we collect it. So the first thing that I just wanted to hit on, I'm going to share my screen, and I told Jack I've got a Cliff Clavin set of data. So like his tongue's out. He's like, bring it on, charts and graphs, and I can't wait. So I will
I'm sorry, I'm such a nerd. Okay.
It's all right. I will say in advance that there's going to be a lot of data that we're going through here, but I just want to make sure that we're sharing what we believe to be factually correct information. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. So we should be seeing a website. Is that correct, Jack? All right, cool. If someone keep me honest, if I stop seeing the screen, let me know, because I shared the whole screen. I'm going to go back and forth between browser windows here. So the first thing is I just wanted to, kind of let everybody know what is Adam's authoritative source. So Adam's authoritative source is the Tax Foundation. And what I pulled up here is just so we're all clear, because I get accused of being a liberal quite a bit. There's a reason that I like the Tax Foundation. is on this media bias fact check. It's right center, which is what I am. Why is it called right center? Because they advocate libertarian economic policy. No freaking wonder I like them. So I just, I want people to know, like, that's where I get my information from when it comes to tax policy and budgeting analysis. Great source, I found over the course of my career. So we're going to be looking at that website quite a bit. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to the Tax Foundation's website, because if you look at this, they actually do a great breakdown of compare by candidate. What's the tax policy? So I've got Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Robert Kennedy, Marianne Williamson. I don't think she's dropped out yet, but she really ought to consider it. So I'm going to click on Donald Trump, and like the punchline with Donald Trump, which is why I wanted to go a little bit more into, hey, where do our taxes go and everything, is the punchline with Donald Trump, if you look at this, is, really no substantive change, for us as business owners. And that's primarily because what he wants to do, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, really had two key features, a business component and an individual component. And with the business component, what gets confusing a lot of people is that the corporate rate, and a lot of us think we're a corporate rate, but we're not. We're individuals, because we're taxed at the individual level. So the corporate rate went from 35% down to 21%. So be more competitive with other foreign jurisdictions. Like, the whole point of bringing it from 35% down to 21% was to say, hey, stop relocating your corporate headquarters overseas. So that was great. Like, there's bipartisan consensus that the rate was too high. We may have debated, was 21% too low, was 35. Everybody pretty much agreed 35% was too high. Even Biden, only wanted to bring it up to 28% because it was higher than everybody else in the world, for the most part. The thing is, though, U.S. corporations weren't really paying that. The effective U.S. corporate tax rate was actually, even though it was 35%, was actually substantially lower than that after you took advantage of deductions and other credits. So they weren't paying that as a real percentage. They just brought it more in line with the real percentage. The other thing that was made permanent, that I think was great that Trump did as part of this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, is he, you can't hide money overseas anymore. It used to be I could do that. Now I can kind of do it, but it's still got a level of taxation that exists on it that was not in place before, and that created like one big massive uptick in company revenue in the first year of its implementation, and it's increased revenue a little bit on the corporate side every year thereafter. But it basically is just a tax on, foreign earnings and foreign holdings that did not exist before Trump. Before, what would happen, Gary, is that, big companies would say, oh, cool, I'm going to headquarter in Ireland and go have my money over there. Like, you'd see that on 60 Minutes. Hey, we're at the corporate headquarters of Apple and it's a PO box.
Right.
That doesn't seem to make any sense, because I'm pretty sure that they're located somewhere else. So and what would happen is, from time to time, administrations would say, well, we'll give you a one-time bring your money back home, tax. Well, Trump made that kind of tax policy permanent, which is great. That was much needed, and actually very much in alignment with this whole concept of having a global minimum tax that every company needs to pay. But outside of that, capital gains, dividends, status quo from that front, credits and deductions, exemptions, status quo according to the Tax Foundation. That said, I would see him doing something associated with the R&D credit, in terms of changing that back to what we hope it would be. The estate and wealth tax, he wants to make the current exemption levels permanent, where they're set to expire in 2025. So again, going back to what I said before, corporate tax things were permanent. Individual tax things expire in 2025. And the way that S corporations and partnerships are taxed, which most of us are, even though we think of ourselves as companies, that expires in 2025. C corps made permanent. Then the only other thing that he's got that is kind of new, he did make an announcement. These are pretty good ones, I think. One would be to tax large private university endowments. If you guys like Malcolm Gladwell, which I love, he's got a podcast called Revisionist History. He's got a multi-part series on the cost of higher education, and he crucifies endowments, as part of that, because some, like, Harvard, I'm sure, is great, and at the same time, for like the next 1,000 years, people could go to Harvard for free if they just dipped into the principal balance sitting in their endowment right now, which is not taxed. So he would tax it. I don't know if I necessarily agree with where he'd put the money, but taxing it would be a good idea, or otherwise y'all need to start spending that, money on actually, because in other words, if I got a charitable deduction for it going in, and then they're just hanging on to it for the sake of hanging on to it, then come on, guys, let's get it out there and have it be doing some good. It's sort of the same concept as, Novant is a not-for-profit. Well, and doesn't have to pay property taxes. Well, part of the deal with Novant being a not-for-profit is that they're supposed to provide, some community service associated with it. And I expect the CEO to not be driving a damn Maybach.
Those are really nice.
Yeah, that I don't know if it's this CEO, but I've heard stories of Novant executives driving Maybach. So like, that's bullshit.
There are a couple of them in town. I know that.
Yeah. So anyway, so he would tax that. I think that would generally be, I think, pretty good. And then the other one that he just announced the other day was to exempt tips from income taxes. I would see that being hard to do. And meaning, like, what would be my case for that? I know they work hard, but there's enough other stuff happening right now to get people that are in tip positions up to a minimum wage level anyway. That I wonder if that one would go anywhere. And then the other one that he just said, hey, you're gonna see the biggest tax cut ever, but he didn't say what it was. So I don't know what else he has planned. But this is
going to be huge.
It's going to be bigly, Gary. But so basically he, the general position statement that he's got now is, hey, not much changes from what he already did, which would again require an affirmative vote of Congress to keep, but not much change around what he did, other than touching some stuff around the margins, unless something comes out from a, some big tax change that we're not aware of. But again, what it means for all of us business owners is that, if this stuff goes away, we're going to have about a 10% rate increase. The Joe Bank of America employee, it's probably about a 3 or 4% rate increase. But for the business owner, it's probably going to be about a 10% rate increase, just based on the way that the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was set up. And then if we had a taxable estate, that's going to be super painful. It's going to double the tax effectively on a taxable estate by reducing the exemption amount. So that's the tax policy in general that he's looking at changing. What I did want to get into now is just some more, hey, how does all this stuff actually really work, if that's cool, Gary?
Go for it.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing that I just wanted to show with everybody is the first question, is and this is Adam's second authoritative source, the Brookings Institute. So Jack, what do we know about the Brookings Institute?
I don't know, Adam. What do we know about the Brookings Institute?
Also right center leading libertarian. In other words, like, it's not a kooky dukes, batshit crazy, sorry, man, my language has been terrible.
And it's not good today, Adam. But
Nah, you got me fired up. Yeah, the only
who's the libertarian candidate? Like, that's Kooky Dukes, man.
Nah, I don't know. Yeah, and I won't vote that way. But anyway, yeah. So the so basically, what I wanted to point out is that the Brookings Institute. So that there's a lot of question out. Hey man, why are we gonna cut taxes? And the answer is we're going to cut taxes because we put more money in Gary's pocket. That's going to lead to economic growth. Like a lot of
economics.
Yeah, a lot of people have studied this problem, right? And there's been lots of reports that have been issued, and the general. So what I'm referencing here is the Brookings Institute summary of all of the studies that have been issued, and I want to highlight on this paragraph here. Which is let me find where it was. Yeah, so it's this one here. The financing of tax cuts significantly affects its long-term impact on long-term growth. But the punchline is, Jack, that, generally, if we reduce tax rates by 1%, it will lead to anywhere between 0.5% to 2% growth in GDP in the third year. So not in year one, not in year two, in year three. So somehow I got to finance those 2 years to get to the third year, right? Before the benefit really starts kicking in.
Yeah.
So what it says here is the financing of tax cuts significantly affects its impact on long-term growth. Tax cuts financed by immediate cuts in unproductive government spending could raise output, but tax cuts financed by reductions in government investment could reduce output. So basically, cut stupid stuff, that's good. Investing in infrastructure, cutting that, bad. If they are not financed by spending cuts, and this is the important part, if they're not financed by spending cuts, tax cuts will lead to an increase in federal borrowing, which in turn will reduce long-term growth. I'm going to read that again. If they're not financed by spending cuts, tax cuts will lead to an increase in federal borrowing, which in turn will reduce long-term growth. The historical evidence and simulation analysis suggests that tax cuts that are financed by debt for an extended period of time have little positive impact on long-term growth and could reduce growth. So I'm going to let that kind of sink in, which is if I give you a rate decrease, Gary, and subsequently pay for that by borrowing the money from China, that's no good. Yeah. If I'm going to give Gary a rate decrease, I really need to offset it by cutting something, and it needs to be something that's stupid. Not something that actually is that creates to investment and long-term growth. So everybody with me so far?
Yep.
All right. So we've had a history of tax increases and decreases over time. So what I wanted to hit on is, you can still see your browser, right? Budget deficits going back to 1929. So we've hit on this theme for many, many times now, which is, hey, how many times have we actually had a budget surplus, meaning we actually spent less than we brought in? Not freaking many. Yeah, it's basically every negative number here in this first column means that we brought in more than we took in. So let's go ahead and keep track. How many years between 1929 and 2023? Jack, you're my Cliff Clavin while you figure that out.
3, 4.
1929 and 2023.
So that's 100 minus 5.
100 minus 5, so 95 years. So we have 1, 2,
The zeros would matter though,
3,
right?
4, 5. No, because that's just breaking even. Yeah, okay. Zeros
Okay.
will matter. We'll count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Wow.
14,
Whoa.
15, 16, 17. And I'll cut to the punchline. That's it. So 17 times in 95 years. Let
Wow.
me let that sink in again. 17 times in 95 years. You know, and how many Democrats and Republicans have been elected over that time period, Gary?
95.
Yeah,
Well,
probably equally balanced, right?
yeah.
So 17 times in 95 years, we've actually had a balanced or surplus budget. Have we, Jack, question for you. Have we been in a period of war or economic chaos for the remaining years outside of those 17? Because that would be a reason you want to spend more money, right?
Seems kind of high. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of thought so
Yeah.
too. So yeah, so what we spent money like drunken sailors, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so keeping this in mind, what I did want to look at are just, you know, what's the there are a lot of years here though, and I'm scrolling pretty quick, I get it, but there's a lot of years where we're it's not zero, but it's not bad. You know, 3 billion, 9 billion, 4 billion, 1 billion, you know, it's not insane, you know,
Right.
as an item, all right? Versus, you know, I mean, not to pick on Reagan, but you know, 208 billion, where all the starting to get insane. You know, we got a little bit of insanity under Bush here. You know, it gets
A
more
lot of
insane.
insanity.
More insane under Obama. It's also when the TARP bailout and the Great Recession was underway. We got insanity in the first year of COVID, in the second year of COVID, you
Yeah.
know? So, in other words, there's also periods of insanity. There's periods it's not bad, then there's periods of insanity. Well, if you look at this, which is federal net outlays as a percentage of gross domestic product, you know, over the same time period, what you find is if we just pick it, you know, if we pick a year, so let's go back to Clinton, because that's a good one. I love, you know, it's a good example of bipartisanship. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich balanced the budget, actually created a surplus, 1998. So if we look at 1998, what's kind of the correlating factor, you know? That's that the federal outlay was only 18% of the GDP. You
Yeah.
know, if you start looking at so this is like, to me, kind of our Mendoza line. You know, I don't even know what the Mendoza line is, Jack. There you go, Jim Marciano. Starbucks card, if you can tell me what the Mendoza line is.
No
But
chat GPT.
yeah, no chat. Yeah. You know, basically anything below kind of 18.5%, we're good. Anything above that, not good. You know, if you just look at the years where we were pretty close, you know, or we were in a surplus, well, look at where we've been at, man. I mean, we've been at, you know, we haven't been there, you know, like 2002, 18.39, that was the last year of a surplus, you know. Then we gave it back in a tax cut, and we just have been bozos ever since. Right?
Yeah.
So then if you look at
So did Jim Marashio get that right? Batting average at 200 is the Mendoza line. Is that right?
could be. I don't know. That's why I said I actually don't know what it is. I've just heard it as a term of like it's something you didn't want to cross. Yeah. So the other thing I want to hit on too is just, okay, hey, have tax rates actually really increased, the growth rate? Because we're talking about cutting taxes for economic growth. These are the tax rates since the inception of the income tax. We're not going to go all the way back to 1862, people, but we are going to scroll a little bit to go back to, Ronald Reagan. He did great. Well, if you look at what was in place, around Reagan time, this is Carter, in 76, right? Look at this. Highest rate was 70%. It used to be worse than this, believe it or not. But highest rate was 70%, and you got there pretty quickly. So this was the Ronald Reagan. So 200 grand is the income level, married filing jointly. 70% is the next marginal tax rate. This is the Ronald Reagan. Why would I make another movie? I'm giving $7 for every dollar that 70% of every dollar that I earn to the government. So, stays in place, stays in place, stays in place, stays in place. He's like, that's crazy talk. He finally gets it done in 82 and does kind of the first big significant tax rate decrease in 82. So when people talk about, well, I mean, Gary has fostered economic growth. How dare you say that, sir? It just, if you go back to, okay, let's go look at 1983, 4.6%, whereas the year before we were in a recession. So went up to 4.8% with that tax cut, 7.2% 2 years later, and then it dropped back down to 4.2%. So that kind of a effect, that kind of thing had an effect. If we go to Bush, who did another one in 2002, 1.7%, went up to 2.8, 3.5, then we fell into a recession. Just to give you kind of the data behind, like when someone says, hey, there's a tax cut and, does it lead to some growth? That's what they're pulling. That's what they're pulling the data from. So then if we look at then what happened? Because a lot of people talk about a flat tax, Gary, like everybody sounds like, hey, they say that's a big deal, right? Well, Reagan did a flat tax right here in 87, rolling into 88. 2 rates, 28%, 15%. That's what we got, period. Right? It's before I was paying taxes, so I don't remember this, but there might be some callers that do remember this.
I remember it.
But if we pull back, hey, what happened there? Probably not a whole lot, 3.7%, and then the economy actually went backwards. So when you remember, okay, well, what happened then? Remember George Bush Sr. saying, "Read my lips, no new taxes." Well, what actually happened? He raised taxes. So it's like, well, clearly the flat tax didn't work, and we need to change something. So he implemented some brackets again, and then Clinton took it a step further with the whole, hey, it's the economy, stupid. And that's really the rates that we experienced, this 39.6%, rate. That's really what we experienced through the balancing of the budget until Bush took over. So if you go back to this, Bush gets a surplus here, elected in 2000, gets a surplus coming into 2001. Does a tax cut in 03. And what happens? Haven't seen a surplus since, Gary.
Yeah.
So goodbye. See you go. Obama.
It's interesting. I would love to get your take on this because, as I've been watching some of the jobs numbers, and every side spins it however they want to spin it, right? but the governmental workers that the governmental sector is where we had the most additional jobs, not in the free market, not in the private sector, but
Yeah.
in governmental. And if you
Yeah.
look at what's happened in Argentina, where this guy comes in and he just like kaboom, he like wipes out all these governmental, like we've got so much governmental bloating going
Yeah.
on.
So I'm gonna get to that in a second. So good question. But what that illustrates is exactly this point. So we're back to the federal net outlays, the percentage of gross domestic product. It doesn't matter how you get there. This seems to be for the United States. If I go back over here to Clinton, because it's pretty standard. This 18, below 18
Yeah.
and a half percent, it doesn't matter how you get there. Job reduction, program reduction, it doesn't matter. That seems to be the magic answer.
Yeah.
So either you need to raise raise rates, lower rates, who knows? But let's say you lower the rate, it spurs some economic growth. You can't spend more. Like you gotta freeze the spending to where the rate of the spend equals sort of this magic answer of when it's this magic answer, we've been in the good. When it hasn't been this magic answer, we've been in the no good. In other words, the data don't lie, dude. So then when you go back to, well, where is the money going? This is from the Treasury, so I do believe that I can trust the Treasury, right, Jack? This is where the money goes. And I find that it's actually easier to see this by agency because I'm like, what does that agency do? So because that's where you cut, that's where the bodies are sitting, right? So if you look at like this one, sorry, I got another bookmark I got to bring up. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is where the money comes in from. So remember this, Jack. In terms of where does the government get money from? Um, us 45.3. These are tariffs and stuff like that, or the consumption taxes. Land leases, stuff like that, or the property taxes. Social Security taxes, we kind of know what that is. That's the employer-employee portion of that. And then corporate taxes are, company taxes. Well, this corporate tax thing actually used to be a bigger percentage of the pie, and the individual side was lower. And sort of the theory was, well, if we give the companies a tax break, then they'll pay Jack more and Jack will pay more tax. It'll all work out. I'm not confident that's what actually happened. But anyway, that's been that has been a change that they're looking to move the needle up to get this corporate tax piece of the pie a little bit bigger. Through both Trump and Biden, have worked on that. That by lowering the rate but then taxing foreign income, we actually increase corporate tax revenue, believe it or not. So that was a good thing. But anyway, when you talk about, well, what are you gonna cut? Keep in mind this is where the money comes in. Well, the Social Security tax, remember that's 21.9%. Remember that, Jack, 21.9%. Well, if you look at the federal spending, the outlay is only 22%. So
1%.
intake is pretty freaking close to outtake, right? So that's not bad. So if you look at like where's been the biggest growth in all this stuff, if you just look at like, again, where you're going to cut, well, military and military benefits are, this 12% plus 5%. I don't think anybody really, there might be, some bad stuff that happens in the VA, but nobody really wants to cut benefits. or the size of the military. I'm not saying that one way or the other. I'm just saying there seems to be no political will to do that. You're not going to do anything with Social Security because that's revenue neutral. So you're kind of left with the Department of the Treasury, which is kind of the monetary system, and the IRS. So you can make an argument that, is that bloated or not? I don't know. I would like them to be able to answer my phone call. That would be a fabulous start. But there probably are some people not actually working over there, not answering the phone. And
It's
then
also
this,
the Secret Service though, right?
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It is Secret Service too. Thank you for that, Jack. Um, some of the people on the call might say, well, depending on the president, it's okay to cut the Secret Service.
That's where I was going with that without saying it, but yeah, okay.
I know I said it for you. So yeah, I don't have the Shoemaker Global that's going to get on me after this, Jack.
That's all right. The FBI will be calling all of us in about
Yeah,
10 minutes. That's okay.
that's right. So then you've got Department of Health and Human Services, which is the biggest part. And frankly, if you go back and you look at this U.S. budget deficit, by year, remember that Department of Health and Human Services is the biggest part. Well, the bloating, a lot of bloating happened here in 09 and 010 and 11 under Obama, but the recession spending was only right here kind of in this time period. Well, this was the effect of the Affordable Health Care Act, which a lot of this is. So this is the Department of Health and Human Services, Medicare, Medicaid, which are kind of indirectly associated with the Affordable Care Act. And then the Affordable Care Act health insurance subsidy itself, plus Head Start, the pre-K program, food stamps, that kind of, those other kind of social services, and other welfare types of businesses. So, point being that if you're going to attack it, there's limited places to attack it. And that could be one. It's just like, what are you going to do? Because, a lot of people, so my other soapbox is obviously health insurance. When I say obviously health insurance, my other soapbox is health insurance and what we pay for health insurance. And it's a true statement that the Affordable Health Care Act has not reduced health care insurance prior to what health insurance costs prior to the Affordable Health Care Act. All it's done, though, is change the rate of change. Like, it has slowed the rate of change, but that's really all that it's done. And insured a lot of people that otherwise weren't going to qualify for insurance or be able to afford it, because we're now paying for it as taxpayers. But that's where, when you look at where things grew, that's the big place that it grew, or one of the big places that it grew, and it was kind of as a direct result of the Affordable Care Act. In that time period, kind of everything else that's been deficit spending since then has either been, we're financing the tax cut, or alternatively, like the pandemic relief package, the infrastructure bill, which, the Brookings Institute would say, hey, that's probably okay to do deficit spending for infrastructure investments. That kind of stuff. But this is where it goes. So, like, if you're going to cut stuff, you got to cut, in these areas. The other thing that's interesting too. So I think the Department of Treasury, Jack, too, I'll have to look it up to keep myself honest, but I think the Department of Treasury is also where the interest payment comes from, which is 13% of that 20%.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, you can't not pay the debt. China would get mad, Gary.
I think they're already mad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right.
I am surprised though, Adam, that I would have thought that Department of Defense spending was much higher. But when, as you explained it, throw in Affordable Care Act and other things into social services, there's so many things that go into there, and you do get people that are just, once you give something like that to somebody, it's very difficult to take it away. And
Yeah.
so, what do? You have to out revenue it essentially, right? Like a business, you have all these costs and you can't cut costs, or for whatever reason, the only way to do is to out revenue it. And if you can't out revenue it, then you have to make some very difficult decisions, like
Yeah,
any business owner does.
that's why it's extremely difficult, because the only way that there is to out revenue it, from, if you're not going to take anything away, the only way to out revenue it is to either raise taxes, which also there's data to support that does lead to job loss and GDP reduction. Or
Right.
alternatively, you try to grow the GDP through stimulus, but even then that says, kind of mixed result, and it's a delayed kind of gratification where you don't really know if it's going to work or not, and the evidence actually supports that kind of doesn't work on a long-term sustained level unless it's coupled with a freeze or reduction in the spending levels, which again goes back to either freezing something where it's at or taking something away. So that's why it's like, again, I wanted to hit on this, for really two reasons. One is just a reminder that, as a taxpayer, like I'd love to see the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act be made permanent, because I do not want to pay more in taxes, and at the same time, it's hard for me to get behind anything further just based on this data. It's like, where the hell is that going to come from? And what are you actually going to cut that isn't going to significantly negatively impact a bunch of people? In other words, like, sure, there's money, like if you add up a bunch of nickels, eventually you get to $1, but I mean, like, we're talking big.
Yeah. Well, one thing that could be
Hundreds
done,
of billions, not like
Gazillions.
shekels. Yeah. Yeah.
there is one other thing though that people can do.
Hmm?
They can go to the 2-day freaking boot camp and learn how to raise their revenues. And you think about
Yeah.
that. If businesses raise their revenues,
Pay more in
more
taxes.
tax dollars.
Yeah, more tax dollars. That's economic growth. Like, that's the principle, is we got some economic growth.
But I also want
Right.
to throw the comment out there that what we've seen with our clients sometimes, and between all of us and within my firm sometimes, is that COVID caused a lot of cuts, partially because we weren't doing the things that we were normally spending money on, like marketing and business development, because we're all stuck in our houses, but also because we had to contract spending. But some have been not as disciplined in the ramp back up, and they've gone back to where they were prior to COVID in spending. So the costs have gone back to, rather than being more disciplined on things. So it's like same as before, rather than saying, okay, do we really need to do that? Because so you have a lot of legacy costs, that's my phrase for it, that have come back into the mix of the financials for businesses and business
Yeah.
owners, that maybe taking another look at your costs, because as you said in your example, is it has to come from somewhere if you're on the cost side of things. So I think that we just kind of flipped the switch back on certain things and said, okay, well, without a whole lot of thoughtful process in re-implementing things of cost to our businesses.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So if you want, now that you've brought calmness to the chaos, I'm going to throw a bomb in there
Oh,
for two
great.
reasons. One
5 minutes
is,
left. Perfect.
okay, one is so that you come back next week to come back to the calmness
Yeah.
that we provide for 60 minutes or so. Secondly, to also corroborate my statement that, okay, we're not taking sides one side or the other, but I will share with you what I found, which is two descriptions as to what Biden's proposal has in it for us negatively and what Trump's. So let's just start with Trump's. So, and well, I don't want to throw these people under the bus, but so these are not my words. The new analysis by this organization provides rough estimates of who benefits and shows that the Trump's plan to cut corporate tax rate down to 15% would give the largest 100 US companies, which is the Fortune 100, a total estimated annual tax cut of $48 billion. They reported 1.1 trillion in profits in their last annual report. It will give the 10 largest US companies a tax cut of 23 billion. They reported 520 billion in profits, and it'll give the largest 5 US oil companies, which is, as you would think, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Marathon, Phillips, an annual total estimated tax cut of 2.5 billion. They reported more than 90 billion in profits. And then it goes into drug companies, Wall Street banks, grocery companies, and how much more money that they're going to put into their pockets because of these job cuts. Okay. On the other side of the analysis is that the Biden administration is poised to impose a 3 trillion tax hike that would affect ending the Trump era tax cuts. President Biden is eager for more money from US taxpayers, and he is willing to drive businesses back overseas by raising corporate tax rates. It's clear that Biden would rather fund his big government progressive agenda than ensure that working citizens can afford necessities. The tax hike isn't about relief for the middle class. It's about supporting exorbitant government spending, which could drive the national debt to new highs. The plan will be crushing for hardworking Americans struggling under Bidenomics. So there you go, channel 114 and channel 116 in words on this program. So back into the chaos.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's have this one little truth, and let's just ignore the rest of the truth. Partial transparency is not transparency.
Yeah, that's right.
And that is just how it is. And unfortunately, we see a lot of that. So, guys, thank you. Everybody, thank you for taking time to join us today. Really appreciate it. Adam, go get a shower, man. I can smell you over here in South Park, man. It's just like, come on, man.
It is embarrassing. I agree.
All right.
Your hair looks good though. How did you
Thank you. I did coif it, ahead of time. So there you go. So I'm good.
It does look good. I wish I had that much hair. Yes, so we will put this up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later on today, and the Shoemaker channel. Jack will have his team do the same thing. And it is kind of funny. I'm looking at this. Gerald Broussard has an AI bot that sits in and it's doing takeaways from the meeting. And the takeaway is like, go to the attend the Sandler sales training boot camp. I like that. That's a practical one you can do right now. And it'll help the deficit. It'll help raise, tax revenues, and it'll help your revenues. So anyway, thank you guys, everybody.
Well, wait. But you got to do one more. You got to do the top one that's on there.
Oh, yeah. The top one is consider offering pet insurance as an employee benefit for employers. Thanks, Jack.
There you go.
Thank you, AI.
And read the book, The Road Less Stupid.
Yes.
So there you go. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. See you around.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.